It started with a will I was never supposed to see. My name's Owen. I'm 34, single, and living in a modest one-bedroom apartment about 30 minutes from where my parents live. Or lived, I guess. It's complicated now. I work full-time as an IT consultant, remote, which is both a blessing and a curse. And for the last 5 years, I've been the unofficial caretaker of my aging parents. Grocery runs, scheduling their appointments, covering bills when Social Security didn't quite stretch far enough. I did it all, quietly and without resentment. Or at least, not at first. My younger sister, Melody, is 31. She's the golden child. Always has been. The kind of person who could crash her car into a tree and somehow convince our parents it was the tree's fault. She moved across the country years ago, chasing dreams that kept changing. First it was fashion design in LA, then yoga certification in Oregon, then opening a vegan bakery in Austin. Now she's back in our hometown. Temporarily, she claims, living rent-free in a friend's spare bedroom and floating between passion projects. Translation: unemployed, but very active on Instagram. Our parents, Bill and Linda, never stopped doting on her. I don't think they know how not to. Even when Melody didn't call for months, even when she missed Dad's birthday 3 years in a row, they made excuses for her. She's just finding herself, Mom would say, as if Melody were some lost sock. I used to roll my eyes, but I kept my mouth shut. That's always been my role in this family. Keep things running, don't rock the boat. I didn't grow up bitter. Honestly, I thought I'd made peace with it. Melody was always the emotional investment. I was the safety net. I showed up, I stayed stable. Maybe I even took some pride in being the one they could rely on when things got tough. Dad's knees started giving out. I installed railings in the bathroom. Mom's blood pressure spiked. I took her to every checkup. When their heater broke in the dead of winter, I paid for the repair, no questions asked. I didn't expect anything in return. Not really. But there's a difference between not expecting something and being slapped in the face by what you don't get. It started subtly. A few months ago, Melody came back into town for a few weeks to reconnect. I wasn't thrilled, but I told myself it wouldn't affect me. We were adults now. We could coexist. At first, things were fine. She'd show up at Mom and Dad's with takeout, post pictures of quality family time, and then vanish for days. I'd still be the one driving Dad to physical therapy, picking up their prescriptions, and refilling the fridge. Melody would swing in just as I was about to leave and say something like, Owen, still doing the groceries? You're such a good son. It never sounded sincere. Always just a little too sugary. Then, about a month into her visit, I started noticing small shifts. Dad mentioned Melody had offered to help them sort out their paperwork. Mom started dropping weird comments, like, Melody's got a really strong sense of responsibility now. She's changed a lot. I'd nod politely and change the subject. What paperwork? I asked once. Oh, just organizing some old files, Mom had said, waving it off. Just making sure everything's in order. We're not getting any younger. I didn't push. I probably should have. The first real punch to the gut came on a rainy Thursday. I'd stopped by after work to drop off some groceries. Mom was in the kitchen, fussing with dinner, and Dad was asleep in his recliner. Melody wasn't around. The envelope was sitting on the kitchen table, half hidden under a stack of magazines. Cream-colored, thick paper. Not the kind of envelope you throw away. I wasn't snooping. I swear I wasn't. But when I set the bag of apples down, the magazine shifted, and the envelope slid into plain view. My name was on it. Not handwritten, typed. That struck me as odd. I picked it up. Inside was a copy of their will. Now, let me be clear, I wasn't looking for money. I never asked for a dime. If anything, I assumed everything would be split 50-50 between Melody and me. Or maybe 60-40, given the history. But the words on that page hit me like a brick to the chest. To our beloved daughter, Melody, we leave the family home and all its contents. No mention of me. No equal split. Not even a token gesture. Just the house. All of it. To her. I stood there in the kitchen for a long time. I think Mom said something about dinner being ready, but it sounded far away, like I was underwater. The buzzing in my ears drowned out everything else. They gave her the house. The same house I'd been maintaining, shoveling the driveway in winter, mowing the lawn every Saturday like clockwork. The same house I'd paid to renovate 2 years ago when the upstairs bathroom flooded. The house I practically lived in more than my own place. And they gave it to her. That night, I didn't confront them. I couldn't. My hands were shaking too much. I drove home, sat in the dark, and let the anger simmer quietly, like a pot left on low heat. I told myself maybe there was more to it. Maybe it was just a draft. Maybe they didn't realize how it looked. The next time I visited, I watched them more closely. Every word, every glance between them and Melody felt tainted now. She'd flash her perfect smile and say things like, "Don't worry, I'll take care of them when the time comes." And Mom would beam like she'd just been handed a grandchild. They never brought up the will, and I didn't ask. But something inside me shifted. A quiet detachment. I started pulling back. Instead of restocking the fridge weekly, I switched to bi-weekly. I stopped paying the utility bills directly and left them in their mailbox with a note. "Let me know if you need help paying this." They didn't notice at first. Or if they did, they didn't say anything. Melody was around more, playing the role of the dutiful daughter, at least when it was convenient for her. But I knew her. I knew the way she flaked on commitments and disappeared when things got hard. I was just waiting for the mask to slip. And then, 2 weeks ago, it happened. I got a text from Mom. No greeting. Just, "Do you know when the electric bill is due?" They sent a warning. A minute later, another. "Also, the grocery store declined my card. Can you check?" And then, the final one that made my stomach churn. "Melody said she thought you were still covering these things." That's when I realized Melody knew I'd seen the will, and she was playing dumb, letting them feel the pinch while pretending to be confused. I could almost hear her voice in my head. "Owen must have just forgotten. He's been so busy lately." I didn't reply. Not right away. I needed to think. And as I sat there, staring at my phone, watching the 3 blinking dots as Mom typed and retyped her next message, something in me hardened. I was done being the fallback plan. I was done being the silent son in the background. That's when the real shift happened. And just when I thought things couldn't get any worse, the message came in. From Dad's phone. "We need $2,000 for rent. Please." No explanation. No apology. Just a request. I stared at the message. And then, I sent back one word. But I'll get to that. Because before that moment, I decided to do something else first. Something that would make sure Melody's little scheme didn't play out the way she expected. And it started with one quiet afternoon, a quick drive to the county records office, and a conversation with a lawyer friend I hadn't spoken to in years. The drive to the county records office wasn't long, 20 minutes if you caught the lights right. I remember gripping the wheel tighter than usual, the skin on my knuckles pale from pressure. Not because of nerves exactly, but because I was tired of not knowing. The will had been a punch to the gut, sure, but it was still just paper. I needed more than a glimpse of a document that might have been outdated. I needed confirmation. The parking lot was mostly empty when I arrived. It smelled like wet concrete and stale coffee inside the building, somewhere between a DMV and a waiting room from a 90s sitcom. The receptionist didn't even look up when I asked for a copy of my parents' property deed and will, just pushed a clipboard toward me and asked for proof of relation. I handed over my ID and explained I was their son. A few minutes later, I was sitting on a faded vinyl chair with a manila folder in my lap, heart pounding harder than it should have. I opened it. There it was. The official deed transfer was pending, to Melody's name, scheduled to go through within the next 3 months. And the will? Filed and notarized just last month. No revisions, no clauses. It wasn't a draft. It was real. And it was final. I drove home in silence. No music. No GPS voice. Just the soft buzz of tires on pavement and the sound of my own heartbeat. I kept thinking, this isn't about money. This isn't even about the house. It was about what it represented. All those years I gave them. My time, my energy, my money. All of it meant nothing the moment Melody batted her eyes and played responsible daughter for a few weeks. They saw what they wanted to see. Or maybe they always had. But I still didn't say anything. Not yet. Instead, I decided to test something. I stopped by their house that weekend, like usual, and watched. Mom greeted me with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Melody was there, sprawled on the couch like she owned the place, sipping kombucha and scrolling on her phone. Dad was half asleep in his chair, TV remote resting on his stomach. "Hey," I said, setting the grocery bag on the counter. Figured I'd drop off a few things. Mom looked surprised. "Oh, you didn't have to, sweetheart. Melody said she was going to handle shopping this week." I glanced at my sister, who didn't even look up. "Did she?" She gave a lazy shrug. "I was going to, but the store was out of everything I needed." Whole Foods is a disaster lately. Right? I said slowly. Well, they've got bread and milk again now, just in case anyone was wondering. Still no eye contact. She just chuckled and kept scrolling. Mom bustled around the kitchen, pulling things from the bag. You're such a lifesaver, Owen. Always so dependable. I hated how that used to make me feel good. I left early that day. Something inside me was cracking, and I didn't trust myself to keep my mouth shut much longer. The final straw came the following Friday. I got a call from my dad, rare enough that I picked up on the first ring. Hey, Owen, he said, voice gravelly with age. Got a favor to ask. Sure, I said automatically. What's up? Well, your sister's been working really hard helping us out lately. That alone made me pause. Okay, and we were thinking, maybe it's time she got a little break. Some time to herself, you know? I had no idea where this was going. Right. So, we were wondering if you could give her your car for a bit. Just for a few weeks. She's been driving mine, but it's not in great shape, and we figured you work from home, so you probably don't need yours much. I blinked. You want me to give her my car? Not give, just lend. Temporarily. She's got some errands, maybe a job interview or two coming up, and she doesn't even have a license in this state. I cut in. There was a pause. Well, she's working on that. I stared at the wall. Dad, that car is paid off. It's mine. I need it for appointments, errands. You want me to walk so Melody can float around town for imaginary job interviews? Don't be like that, he said quietly. I hung up. No yelling. No explanation. I just ended the call. And that was the moment I knew. This wasn't accidental. It wasn't a miscommunication or a misunderstanding or any of the excuses I'd been feeding myself for months. They didn't see me as the responsible son anymore, if they ever had. I was the utility, the bank, the spare wheel. And Melody? She was the princess. The one who'd changed, the one who meant well, the one who deserved things just for showing up. A few hours later, I got a text from her. Sorry if Dad caught you off guard. I told him you might be weird about it. Let me know when I can pick up the keys. I stared at the screen for a long time. I didn't reply. Instead, I logged into the shared grocery delivery account I'd been using for my parents for years and deleted my payment info. I called the pharmacy and transferred Dad's prescriptions to a location closer to me. I suspended the auto pay on their electricity and phone. And then I blocked Melody's number. Not out of spite. Not yet. But because I needed silence. I needed space to think. Over the next 2 weeks, the texts from Mom started to shift. First it was confusion. Owen, did the grocery order not go through? Then worry. Honey, I think something's wrong with the electric bill. We got a notice. And finally, desperation. We need $2,000 for rent. Please. Rent. That word caught me off guard. Rent? They own the house. What rent? Then it clicked. They'd taken out a reverse mortgage. Probably not long ago. Probably Melody's idea. Just a little extra cash to make things easier. After all, if she was going to inherit the house, what did it matter? But now the bills were coming due. And with me out of the picture, there was no one left to float them. The silence must have unnerved them. Because for the first time in a long while, they didn't just text, they showed up. At my apartment. I was making dinner when I heard the knock. I didn't check the peephole. I just opened the door. There they were. Mom looked tired, makeup uneven, hair pulled back too tight. Dad was leaning on his cane, face drawn. And behind them, like a ghost haunting my doorstep, stood Melody, wearing oversized sunglasses and a smug little half-smile like this was all some sitcom scene about to resolve itself with a laugh track. Owen, Mom said gently, we need to talk. I didn't say anything. Just stepped aside and let them in. They filed in slowly. Melody made herself at home immediately, plopping onto my couch like she owned the place. I stood near the kitchen, arms crossed. Well, I said. Mom cleared her throat. We've hit a bit of a financial snag. And we know you've always been there for us, so we were hoping. No, I said. She blinked. I haven't even finished. You want money, I said flatly. You want help with bills, rent, groceries, whatever. But the answer is no. Owen, Dad said, voice tight, don't be like this. We're family. Family, I repeated. Is that what we are now? Mom frowned. Of course we are. You gave away the house. Behind my back. You handed it to Melody like a party favor and didn't think I'd notice. It's not like that, Mom started, but I held up a hand. It is like that, I said. You filed the will. You initiated the deed transfer. You made a choice. Melody scoffed from the couch. God, Owen, it's just a house. Grow up. I turned to her. No, it's not just a house. It's the principle. It's every doctor's appointment I drove them to. Every bill I paid. Every hour I spent fixing, replacing, caring. While you were off making gluten-free incense or whatever you were doing. Her face twisted. Wow, that's bitter. Yeah, I said. I guess I am. Mom stepped forward, her voice soft. We made a mistake. But we need your help now. Please. I looked at her, really looked at her, and felt something snap. Not loudly. Not like a crack or a bang. More like a quiet click, like a door finally locking. You already chose who you trust, I said. Now live with it. Dad's jaw tightened. So that's it. You're cutting us off. You cut me off a long time ago, I said quietly. I'm just finally catching up. There was a long silence. Melody stood up, brushed non-existent lint off her sleeves, and said, Come on. This was a waste of time. And just like that, she led them out. No apologies. No second thoughts. No goodbyes. When the door closed behind them, I stood there for a long time. Not angry. Not even sad. Just clear. The next morning, I sent back my response to the rent request. One word. No. But this wasn't the end. Because I just uncovered something else in that county office file. A little clause buried in the deed transfer. And Melody had no idea what was coming next. I didn't hear from them again for a while after that confrontation. A few days passed. Then a week. Then two. The silence wasn't loud. It was a relief. There were no passive-aggressive texts, no guilt trips, no just checking in calls from Mom. Even Melody, queen of smug entitlement, stayed quiet. I had half a mind to wonder if they were cooking up something bigger behind my back, but I didn't care. For once in my life, I didn't care what my family thought of me. That silence gave me space. And in that space, I finally heard something I hadn't noticed in years. Myself. See, when you're constantly giving, you stop noticing how much it's draining you. How much of your identity becomes wrapped in the act of being useful. I thought I was just being responsible, loyal, a good son. But the truth was, I'd been running on empty for years, scraping by on scraps of validation. I hit rock bottom slowly, quietly. I don't mean I lost everything. Not in the usual sense. I still had my job, my apartment, my health. But emotionally, it felt like something inside me had cracked open. There were mornings I'd wake up and just stare at the ceiling, wondering what the point was. What was I working for? Who was I showing up for? Certainly not my family. And if not them, then who? It took a few rough weeks before I accepted the answer, me. I was the only one who'd ever shown up for me. That realization didn't hit like a thunderbolt. It settled in like fog, a quiet shift in atmosphere. And once it was there, I knew I had two choices, wallow in it or build something from it. I started small. The day after that thought landed, I shut my laptop early and took myself out to lunch. Not drive-through, not leftovers, an actual sit-down meal at a place I'd always meant to try but never had time for. I sat by the window, ordered something I couldn't pronounce, and watched the world pass by without guilt gnawing at the edges. It felt weird, and then it felt good. From there, I started rebuilding, not just my routine, but my mindset. I cleaned my apartment top to bottom, got a new desk chair that didn't murder my back, went through my finances and realized I was okay. Actually better than okay. Years of frugality had paid off. Without all the extra spending on my parents' bills, I had room to breathe, room to invest. So I did. I signed up for therapy. Weekly Zoom calls at first, just to unpack the tangled mess of guilt, obligation, and anger I'd been carrying around since I was old enough to say it's fine through gritted teeth. It was uncomfortable. I cried. A lot. But I also started sleeping better. And then I did something that shocked even me. I took a vacation. Just me, a one-way ticket to the West Coast, and 5 days of absolute silence from anyone who shared my last name. I hiked. I ate overpriced food. I sat on a beach at sunrise and realized I hadn't felt this calm since I was a teenager. It was like meeting a version of myself I'd forgotten existed. The version who had dreams and curiosity and boundaries. By the time I got back, something had shifted permanently. I no longer cared what my family thought of me. And that kind of freedom? It's addictive. I poured more time into work, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. I picked up new clients, took on more challenging projects. My bank account started looking healthier than it had in years. I stopped eating at my desk. I started saying no to things I didn't want to do. Even simple stuff, like declining a meeting that could have been an email. My therapist called it self-reclamation. I called it finally feeling like a person again. But despite all this healing, one thing kept poking at the back of my mind like a loose tooth I couldn't stop tonguing. The clause in the deed. Back when I went to the county records office, buried beneath the standard transfer language, was a detail most people wouldn't think twice about. But I'd done enough contract reviews in my line of work to notice the wording. Subject to lien clearance and familial equity reconciliation. I didn't fully understand it at the time, but it didn't sit right with me. So I called in a favor. Samir, a buddy of mine from college, now worked in real estate law. We hadn't talked in years, but when I reached out, he didn't hesitate. I've seen that language before, he said after I emailed him the scanned documents. It means the house isn't cleanly theirs to transfer yet. Your name was likely on something related, maybe a cosigner on a mortgage, or listed in a financial support clause. If you paid for renovations or major upkeep, and there's a paper trail, you could contest the transfer. My heart beat a little faster. Contest how? Block it, delay it, even force a buyout. Depends on what you can prove. It took everything in me not to laugh, or scream, or cry. Instead, I said, thanks, and got to work. Because the house may have meant nothing to me now, but the principle did. So I dug. I spent weekends combing through bank statements, invoices, emails. All those years of paying their heating bills, wiring money for repairs, buying groceries. I had most of it saved. I was that kind of person, the just-in-case type. And now, just in case had become exactly because. Samir walked me through the next steps. A letter of formal intent to challenge the deed. Not a lawsuit, not yet. Just a declaration that I was contesting the ownership due to unacknowledged contributions and unreconciled equity. The county office would flag the transfer as pending dispute, effectively freezing it. I didn't send it right away. I sat with it for a few days. Not out of doubt, out of clarity. I needed to be sure I was doing it for the right reasons. And I was. This wasn't revenge. This was closure. I didn't care if I got the house. I didn't want it. What I wanted was acknowledgement that I'd mattered, that all those years weren't invisible, that I wasn't just a wallet with a heartbeat. When I finally dropped the envelope in the mailbox, I felt lighter than I had in months. It wasn't about what came next. It was about what ended. And I thought that was it. But life, as always, had one more twist waiting for me. Because just when I thought they were done trying to pull me back in, Melody showed up again. This time, not at my door, but on social media. I got tagged in a post by an old neighbor. A photo of my parents' house. Captioned, "Can't believe they're listing it. Such a beautiful place." My stomach dropped. They were trying to sell the house, while it was under dispute. And I knew, with cold certainty, that Melody was behind it. I didn't comment. I didn't like the post. I just picked up the phone and called Samir. And that's when things really started getting messy. Because Melody didn't know what I'd done. She didn't know I'd frozen the deed. She didn't know the sale would be blocked. She didn't know I held the final piece. And when she found out, oh, she was going to lose it. The listing went live 2 days later. I wasn't following Melody, of course. But the internet has a way of delivering what you're trying to avoid. An old classmate sent me a screenshot with the message, "Your folks moving? Thought you'd be the one selling it." The image was unmistakable. Our childhood home, repainted in a trendy shade of gray, the flower beds tidied up, a wide-angle shot that made the tiny backyard look like a country estate. The caption beneath it? "Charming family home, lovingly maintained, recently updated. Contact Melody for a private showing." I stared at it for a long time, my fork frozen in midair over a plate of cold leftovers. She was trying to sell the house. The house that wasn't legally hers. The house I'd spent years taking care of. The house they'd quietly gifted her behind my back. That was the moment I knew this wasn't just greed. It was arrogance. Melody genuinely believed she could get away with it. That I would just fade into the background like I always had. But this time, she was trying to profit off my silence. And she had no idea I'd already pulled the pin. I called Samir that same night. "She's trying to list the house," I said, pacing the length of my apartment like a caged animal. "She's got it up on public real estate platforms. She's staging open houses. She's acting like this is a done deal." Samir, calm as ever, didn't even flinch. "Did the county clerk update you?" "Not yet. They will soon," he said. "The dispute filing is active. Once the agents try to process the sale, the title flag will freeze everything." "And she has no idea?" Nope, he said, a bit of satisfaction in his voice. From her side, it'll look like a sudden legal snag. She'll panic. I sank into the couch, heart pounding. Good. But I wasn't satisfied with just good. Not yet. For the first time in years, I wasn't just reacting, I was planning. I could feel the momentum shift. And I knew, if I played this right, Melody's entire little fantasy empire was about to implode. But to make it truly unforgettable, I needed more than just legal filings. I needed to understand her game, and then break it. So I started digging. Melody, for all her flakiness, was always terrible at covering her tracks. Her Instagram was practically a diary. I followed her business account from a burner profile and found gold almost instantly. She was already boasting about the sale, exciting things ahead, saying goodbye to the past to make room for new chapters. DM if interested in a turnkey property. A day later, a selfie in front of the house. Open house this weekend. Manifesting good energy for the next owner. I almost laughed. She was acting like she owned the place, like the years I spent fixing it up had been a favor to her. And the comments, the comments, were filled with her enablers. So proud of you, Mel. You deserve this. New beginnings. It's your season, girl. I took screenshots of everything. And then I kept digging. Turns out, Melody hadn't listed the house herself. She was using a friend, some ex-flame turned amateur real estate agent, who was clearly doing her a favor. The website linked to his brokerage, and with a few clicks, I had his name, his license number, and his contact info. I didn't reach out directly. Not yet. But I made a note. If he was dumb enough to go to escrow without checking the title first, he was in for a rude awakening. Now came the hard part, waiting. I had no idea how quickly the freeze would trigger once someone tried to move on the sale. It could be days. It could be hours. But I wasn't just going to sit back and twiddle my thumbs. So I got proactive. I called a former neighbor, Mrs. Albright. Sweet woman, mid-70s, lived across the street for as long as I could remember. She and my mom used to trade garden tips. She always liked me better than Melody, though. Could never keep it a secret. Mrs. Albright. I said when she picked up, "How are you?" "Oh, Owen," she chirped. "Haven't heard from you in ages. Are you still working those computer jobs?" "I am," I said with a chuckle. "Hey, listen, I wanted to ask a favor." I explained the situation, well, the cleaner version of it. That Melody was trying to sell the house, that I had legal reason to block the sale, and that there might be an open house soon. I asked her to keep an eye on things and call me if anything seemed off. She didn't hesitate. "I'll call you the second I see a for sale sign go up." Sure enough, 2 days later, she did. "It's up," she said flatly. Big white sign, balloons, the whole thing. And Melody was out there earlier with some fella in a tight jacket. I think he called her babe. "Thanks, Mrs. Albright." I didn't go that day. I wanted her to have her moment. I wanted her to parade around, giving smug little tours of my parents' living room, talking up the original crown molding like she even knew what that was. I wanted her to feel like she was winning, because that's what would make the crash hit harder. Instead, I sent an email to the real estate agent. Subject: urgent, property title dispute, 44, Sycamore Lane. Body: Dear Mr. Pruitt, I'm writing to inform you that the property located at 44, Sycamore Lane is currently under a title dispute filed with the county clerk's office. I strongly recommend you verify the status of the deed before proceeding with any sale or transfer. Please consider this your formal notice of dispute. Sincerely, Owen Clark. No threats. No drama. Just facts. Samir approved the wording. Said it was legally unshakable. I CC'd him, too, just to drive the point home. It didn't take long. The next day, I got a furious text from Melody, through an unknown number, since I'd already blocked her personal one. "What are you doing?" I stared at it for a moment, then deleted it without responding. 2 hours later, another message came through, this time from my mother. "Owen, please, call me." And still, I said nothing. Because this wasn't the endgame. Not yet. See, revenge isn't about rage. Not real revenge. Not the kind that leaves a scar. It's about control. And I had it now. The freeze triggered. The sale was blocked. The agent backed off, furious and embarrassed. Melody's little house of cards came tumbling down before she even got an offer in. But I wasn't done. Because I hadn't just stopped the sale. I'd also uncovered something else during my financial digging. Something Melody definitely didn't want exposed. Something she thought she'd hidden away under a mountain of deleted emails and expired LLC paperwork. But unfortunately for her, I know how to recover deleted data, especially from her old shared Google Drive. And what I found there, let's just say, if she thought the house was the only thing she had to lose, she was about to find out how wrong she was. But I'll get to that, because before I made my next move, I had to make sure everything was airtight. And once it was, that's when the real fun began. She thought I'd stay quiet, even after blocking the sale. Even after freezing the deed transfer and humiliating her in front of the realtor, she was probably dating again for convenience. Even after losing her commission, her fresh start, her social media bragging rights, Melody still thought I'd stop there. But see, she had one fatal flaw. She always underestimated the quiet ones. While she was busy staging open houses and floating candles in mason jars to create aesthetic vibes, I was piecing together the final part of my plan. And it all came down to that digital footprint she thought she'd erased. I'd remembered an old shared Google Drive folder. Back when she was trying to launch her first wellness coaching business, one of many failed ventures. She'd asked me to help with her tech setup. I created the drive, added her, and then forgot about it. Years passed. She must have assumed I deleted it, or that I wouldn't think to look. But when I searched my email archive and recovered the link, it still worked. And inside that folder, gold. Buried under spreadsheets and half-baked brand mood boards were financial records from her failed ventures, Venmo receipts, bank statements, invoices, and more importantly, records of loans. One in particular caught my attention. A $22,000 loan from our parents' joint retirement account. The memo read, temporary withdrawal from Melody's startup, to be repaid by Q4, not to be disclosed to Owen. That last part hit me like ice water. They took from their own retirement just to fund her yoga box subscription business. And they'd lied to me, flat out lied, even when I was covering their food and meds. Worse, she never repaid it. In fact, 3 months later, there was another note. Wrote off repayment. Melody says she's emotionally overwhelmed. Will treat as gift. So, not only did she get the house, they had also burned through what little savings they had left to help her chase dreams she abandoned before the website was even built. And then they expected me to float their bills. I was done, but I didn't just want her to lose. I wanted her to understand the consequences. So I called Samir one last time. Can we trigger a formal audit of the asset transfer? You mentioned familial equity clauses. He whistled through his teeth. If you've got proof of financial favoritism, especially using retirement funds without equal compensation, it'll look like coercive manipulation. In some jurisdictions, that's enough to file for a legal injunction to reverse or void the deed entirely. Do it, I said. He paused. You sure? Yes. I'm done playing nice. Over the next few weeks, we submitted every document. The $22,000 withdrawal, the repairs I'd paid for over the years, the inheritance clause I'd been excluded from, the invoices, the texts, even the screenshots of Melody's listings. All of it. When the legal notice hit her inbox, I knew it had landed because she went radio silent for exactly 48 hours. Then the storm hit. Mom called first. Owen, what are you doing? Melody's a wreck. She's crying. She's overwhelmed. She says you're trying to ruin her life. I stayed quiet until she stopped sputtering. Then I calmly said, she tried to sell a house that wasn't legally hers. She drained your savings. She blocked me out of a will after I spent years taking care of both of you. This isn't revenge. It's reality. She's your sister. No, I said. She's a scam artist who finally got caught. Dad tried calling next. I let it ring. Melody sent me a barrage of texts from a new number. I only read the first one. I hope you're happy. You destroyed everything. You always wanted to be the favorite. Congrats. I muted the thread. Then I got a call from Samir. She's folding, he said. Her lawyer's trying to negotiate. Good, I replied. Make them squirm. We didn't settle. We didn't negotiate. We forced her hand. Under pressure from the title freeze, the financial records, and the looming audit, Melody formally relinquished the deed transfer. The county voided the pending handoff. She lost the house. Just like that. But I wasn't done. I filed a civil suit. I didn't want the house. I never did. But the money? The repairs? The years of unpaid bills? I wanted every cent. And I got them. She had to liquidate most of what was left of her online coaching fund and pay me $34,500 in restitution. She also had to issue a written statement to the court acknowledging that she had misrepresented ownership of the house during the attempted sale. That document is now a matter of public record. The cherry on top? When the real estate agent found out she'd lied to him and nearly cost him his license, he dropped her like a hot brick. No refund on his marketing fees. No more open houses. No more staged kitchens with citrus in bowls. And the community? They saw. Mrs. Albright didn't waste a moment. She told the other neighbors. Word spread like wildfire. Suddenly, Melody wasn't an influencer anymore. She was that girl who tried to sell a house she didn't own and got sued by her brother. The fallout hit fast. She lost followers. Her coaching page went dark. Her so-called brand partners pulled out. No more #blessed posts. No more manifesting abundance stories. My parents? They were forced to take out a real mortgage on the house again to cover expenses. I didn't help. I moved on. I cut them off, completely this time. Changed my number. Updated my emergency contacts. Blocked every email. For the first time in my life, I put myself first and walked away with clean hands and a clear conscience. I wasn't the villain. I was the wake-up call. And in the end, the final piece of revenge wasn't what I took back. It was what they could never take from me again. My peace.